Hello everyone! In this video, I'm going to show you how to use and display Google Slide lessons in the ClassIn classroom. So my last video I made about PowerPoint lessons being used in the classroom. This one is going to focus on just Google Slides. As you probably already know, you cannot upload Google Slides into the ClassIn drive. So I have a lot of people that ask me, what is the best way to display Google Slides and use them in the classroom? Well, there are actually 3 different methods that you can use. So I'm going to show you each of those methods. I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons and the one that I prefer and why. So let's take a look at the first method, which is the method that I prefer, which is actually converting the Google slide into a PowerPoint, which is what I usually use and create my lessons with, PowerPoint. So I'm going to use Google Slide lessons from a group of teachers called Teachers Together English. So I want to give them a quick shout out because they do have a great group of lessons that they have already created, and they are currently still creating and working on these lessons. So if you go to Teachers Pay Teachers, you can find them. Their name is Teachers Together English. This is a group of online ESL teachers working together to create these great lessons. They have lessons all the way from level 1 up to level 7, and it's a similar feel to like the VIP Kid lessons or Go-Go Kid lessons. So check them out. They have tons of lessons already created, so you can use those in your classroom, or you could always make your own Google Slide lessons. So let's take a look at how I can take a Google Slide and convert it into PowerPoint if you don't already know. So here is the Google Slide that I'm going to be using today, and I'm also going to be using with one of my students starting next week. So if you have the Google Slide, you just right click on it and click download. If it asks you how to download it, just click download to PowerPoint. So then it takes the Google Slide and just converts it into a PowerPoint form. Then once you have it as a PowerPoint, you can go into your ClassIn drive and upload it directly into the classroom, which again is my preferred method. So here is my lesson. I already uploaded it and put it in here. If you don't know how to upload PowerPoints and use those in the classroom, I suggest you go and watch my other video as well using PowerPoint lessons in the classroom. I'm not going to go into all the details of using PowerPoint since I already made that video, but I do want to show you the differences between using it as a PowerPoint and displaying it as a Google slide. So first, let me pull up the PowerPoint. So it looks exactly like it would in Google Slides. The main thing that you need to remember is to always check the PowerPoint before you use it in the classroom, because it was created as a Google slide. When it converts into a PowerPoint, sometimes things get a little wonky. Usually it's the fonts or animations that get messed up. Fonts, not a big deal. Usually, if the font is not available in PowerPoint, it will just use a similar font. Animations, most animations like fade in, fade out, fly in, fly out, I've never had an issue with those converting into PowerPoint. They work fine. But if you have some type of fancy animations, complex animations, they might have trouble converting properly. So always go through your PowerPoint just like you would in a classroom and just check all the animations and make sure all the words are displayed correctly. So we will take a look at how they might look a little different from the Google slide. So here is my PowerPoint. I would use it just like any other PowerPoint in ClassIn. So now I'm going to show you the second method, and I'm going to compare the two. So I want to keep this one on my screen, and I will pull up the browser. So ClassIn has its own built-in browser, just like you would use the browser on your computer. So you go to the toolbox, and if you haven't used the toolbox in a couple weeks, it might look a little different because there was an update. If you don't see the browser, you can use the little arrow, and then you can display all of the different tools. So I'm going to click on the browser, and it just pulls a browser into the classroom. I have where I put the URL, and I can also save the files, and I'll show you that in just a second as well. So for this method, I'm going to open my Google Drive, and I'm going to open the Google slide that I want to use. So I've opened it, and every Google slide has its own unique URL. So I'm going to go to the URL up here. I'm going to copy it, Control C, and then I'm going to go here, and I can either use Control V, right click, and paste, and then I will hit enter. So now my Google slide is just displayed in the classroom using the browser. So I would use this just like I would if I opened the Google slide on my computer. So here, and if I wanted to save it for another class or open it before class so it's ready to go and I don't have to copy paste during my class, we don't want to do that because that doesn't look very professional when you're not prepared. What you could do is open just the test classroom, just the Blackboard class, the test room, practice room, whatever you want to call it, and you just click on this star. There we go. So it says website saved successfully. So now if I exit out, open my browser again, I see the lesson right here. I don't have to copy and paste it. Now I just click and it opens. So I'm prepared for class, ready to go. So from here, I'm going to display my slideshow just like I would in my Google Drive into presenter view. So now I have it opened on the browser in Google Slides. No changes were made to it, just in Google Slides. A couple things to look at on the browser is the share sound button. If there is a video in the lesson and you play that video, you need to share the sound. Otherwise, the student will not be able to hear it. You can hear it, the student can see it, but the student will not be able to hear it. So now let's take a look at excuse me, the differences between the Google slide in the browser and the Google slide converted into a PowerPoint and the key differences between the two. So I'm going to open these up side by side. So on my right, I have my browser, Google Slides, and on my left, I have my PowerPoint. So first thing is switching slides. Both of them can be used by having your tool set to the mouse and just clicking on the screen, or going down here on the Google slide, clicking, or down here, there's the button in the middle. I want to use this one. The reason you want to use this one, if you haven't seen my other video, is the right does go to the next slide, but if there's an animation, you have to use this middle button, because if there's an animation and you click here, it will skip the animation. So I always use the middle button no matter what. If there's no animation, it just goes to the next slide anyway. If there is an animation, it will make the animation play through and not skip it. So use the middle button. So both have two different ways to go to the next slide. Okay. Second thing I want to talk about, the difference, is the notes. So on a PowerPoint, if you watch my other video, you can look through the slides here if you wanted to skip to a new slide. And it has the notes. So the notes box I like because you can move it around wherever you want, and the student cannot see it. Only you can see it. The Teachers Together English group, they do add notes to their slides. They might not have a note on every slide. If it's something like just the soon I will, just displaying the objectives, you're not going to have notes. But if we go here, there are some notes. Student practices introducing themselves. So that is a benefit to the PowerPoint. Over here, I have not found a way to display the notes. When I click on this, it does say open speaker notes. But when I click on it, it doesn't display them. So if somebody else has found a way to do that, then let's see if that works. Nope. So these don't seem to work. these options don't seem to work in the browser on ClassIn. So you're kind of left to remembering what to do. Make sure you prepare ahead of time and you know what you're going to do on each slide. Whereas the PowerPoint, if you're like, I know I wanted to say something here, I wanted to ask a question, but I can't remember, you have that note as a backup to help you remember. I love using the notes. I use them for all of my PowerPoints. I love it. Okay, so that's the key difference between the two and why one thing I like better about the PowerPoint. The next thing I wanted to look at is the drawing. This is a big key difference that I want to talk about. So if I am, because I write on my slides all the time, my students, I ask them to circle or draw or write or underline on the slides, you're probably going to be using the drawing tool. So here's my Google slide on my browser, and here is my PowerPoint. So notice with the Google slide, if I'm on the pen, I have no way to advance my slide. I can use the left and right arrow. Let's see. I don't know if it'll work here. Nope. The left and right arrow on my keyboard does not work with the Google slide. The button to change to the next slide is not there. I can't click. So if I'm writing on a slide and I want to advance to the next slide, I have to click first on the mouse. Then this pops up. I now can click and go to the next slide. With my PowerPoint, so here's my writing. I'm writing on the slide. I want to advance to the next slide. I don't have to go back to my tools because my arrow and play key are still there. So I can just keep my pen open and I can click to the next slide. Notice another key difference. When I advance to the next slide on PowerPoint, my pen automatically disappears. That's good because you don't have to erase anything. It also could be bad. So let's say you're talking about something and the student writes a 7 and they accidentally click and you want to go back, all your writing's gone. So that's one negative, but the positive is you don't have to erase anything. So now with the Google slide in the browser, what do? You have to erase everything on every single slide. If it's just a pen, you could, of course, use the eraser. Usually you can do that pretty fast. But I know my students like to use the circle tool, the drawing, or they like to use the square. They love using the tools. Well, as you know, the eraser does not work for those tools, and deleting everything individually can take some time if there's a lot of writing. There is a little shortcut to help you delete things faster. So let's see, you have my drawing. Let's say you have writing. Let's say you also have typing. So how do I get rid of everything all at once? Well, here's what I think is the best option. Sometimes you can use a shortcut on your keyboard, which is Control A, but right now it's not working. It only works if you are actively just drawing on the board. So I'm draw, Control A. You see a box around everything that I just drew and hit backspace. But if you're drawing, if you're typing, if you're using the shapes, and then you click away to something else, the Control A doesn't work. So the best option that I think to delete everything is to go to your tool that looks like a dotted line made into a square or rectangle. Click on that. Then you can highlight everything. Let go. You can either hit the trash can or just hit backspace on your keyboard and it all deletes. That's a lot of stuff you have to do between every single slide because I know I write on almost every single slide. So you would have to do that every single slide where the PowerPoint you do not. Again, that's why I like PowerPoint better. I don't have to deal with the deleting, erasing every single slide. Now, let's look at the difference between visual, how it looks. How did it convert? Well, you can see how it was originally made over on the right side. There's my Google slide, and you see what it looks like when it converted to PowerPoint. you're going to notice it looks pretty much the same. I have the same words, the numbers, everything looks the same. The font is pretty much the same. It looks just slightly different. You're going to notice over here, it looks a little bold, where on my PowerPoint, it doesn't look bold. Not a big deal, like I said. Slight difference in font. So let's look at a couple other ones. Everything looks, again, the same, except the font looks slightly different. We have, again, font looks slightly different, but everything else looks the same. Here, let me delete, highlight, boop, gone. Go back to my clicking key. Remember, you always have to go back to the mouse button to advance the slide in Google Slides on the browser. So here's the next slide. And now you're going to see an animation. Let's see how they look. Here's my Google slide, flies in from the left. Here's my PowerPoint, slides in from the left. They look exactly the same. The font, again, is just slightly different. Some more animations. Pretty much looks exactly the same. So, as far as the converting into PowerPoint, as long as the animations are basic animations, you should not have any trouble with the conversion, which is why, again, I like the PowerPoint better. Okay, so now, another thing I want to talk about, videos. So I had mentioned the sharing the sound in Google Slides. If there's a video embedded, the good thing about Google Slides, one thing that is better about using it in the browser is you can play videos directly in the Google slide. They will show to the student. But if you convert it to PowerPoint, any PowerPoint, even if you make it in PowerPoint, you cannot show like YouTube videos that are embedded into it. You would have to download the video separately and play it separately from your lesson. So that's one point for Google Slides in the browser. That's the one positive of using Google Slides in the browser. Okay, so those are the key differences. I make sure I said everything that I needed to say there. Oh, one other thing about Google Slide in the browser. If it's the first time that you're doing it, you will have to log into your Google account. I had to do that the first time. Once you have logged into your Google account one time, you won't have to do it every single time. So if it's your first time doing it, go into that practice Blackboard room, log in, save everything you need, and you won't have to do it again. So there are the key differences between those two. So I said there are 3 ways to display Google Slides. The third way is my least favorite, and to me there's no reason to use it, honestly, because it's basically the same as using the browser. The third way is screen share. So let me exit out of these. And the screen share is, again, in your toolbox. You go to the sharing tools. There are 3 options. Again, this is slightly different in the latest update, so if you haven't used it recently, it might look different to you. You have the desktop sharing, the teacher screen share, and sharing for all students. You most likely will never use the last one. That's for like if students are sharing their screen with you as well. If you are displaying a Google Slide lesson, you want to use number 2, teacher screen share. If you choose desktop sharing, you will not be able to write on the screen, and your student will not be able to write on the screen. You're just displaying a picture, basically. You can talk about it, you can go through the lesson, but you cannot write on it, which we all know that's important, especially when teaching young students. We want them to interact. So you're going to use this middle button. Before you're ready to do that, make sure you have everything opened on your computer because you are sharing your computer. So what I would do is I would have this lesson ready to go in presenter view, and I would just have it open behind my lesson. So when I click on teacher screen share, the student will automatically see the lesson pop up. because I'm sharing my computer screen. You don't want to have to fumble around and find it and open it. Otherwise, they're going to see everything that you're doing on your computer, everything on your desktop. You don't want them to see all that. So once I click this, it looks like I'm just in my Google slide. I had it open on my desktop. Now the student can see it. That green box that you see, that tells you what the student is seeing on their screen. So you can make it smaller. So let's say you have it smaller, but look at the green box. Now the student is seeing everything on my desktop, and they're seeing the display of the Google slide. I can change what they can see with this little box with a check mark. I can choose my desktop or a specific application. So I can choose this and share. Now the green box is only around the Google slide. So that's an option if you don't want to have your entire desktop being shared at the same time. So here is where you can allow the student to write on the screen, and you can write on the screen. You can automatically do it. Your tools are right here. So here's my tools. I could draw, but you have to give access to the student. First, of course, make sure their crown was already on, because you can't do that once you screen share. So make sure the crown was already on to have their tools available. And then you choose here, allow student authorized to draw. There is an option to click, but that only works if a student is using a desktop computer or a laptop computer. So they cannot click if they're using a tablet, but they can still draw using the tablet. So once I click that, now my student can also draw and write and use their tools. They'll have their tools available to them on the shared screen. If you want to turn off their ability to write, you would just forbid students to control. You can still use the tools. So again, I have to go to the next slide. I cannot move to the next slide, just like with the browser, until I use the click tool. Now I can go to the next slide. Lo and behold, I still have the same problem as the browser. In order to delete everything, I can use this, highlight, and delete. And then I go back to my clicking or back to my writing, whatever I want to use to go through the lesson. So like I said, to me, the screen share is not any better, it's not any worse than using the browser. To me, they are pretty much the same. The negatives about using the screen share is you can't move yourself. You can move this, but the student can't see that. You can move yourself, but you can't drag the student box. You can't drag your box. You can't give trophies. So there's limitations to using the screen share option. I also wanted to show you how sometimes you can lose your tools, and I'm going to show you that. Let me go back to, let me change this to my desktop and make this large. So when you first go in, sometimes your box blocks all of this stuff up here. So if you ever can't find the drop down to allow your student to draw or the tools, all you do is move your box and it's going to be behind you. This just allows you to move yourself. Again, the student cannot see that. Theirs will always be at the top, but you can move yourself around so you can see easier, or if you just prefer yourself to be in a different position. So now I'm going to exit out of here. Okay, so those are my 3 main ways to display Google Slides. So we have convert to a PowerPoint, use it in the browser, or screen share. My favorite method, PowerPoint. Everybody has different reasons why they prefer one method over the other. So just think about those positives and negatives that I explained, the drawing, the clicking, the sound, the videos. Whatever you think is going to work best for you and your students is what you want to use. You don't have to use the PowerPoint method just because I said it's the best. It's just what works best for me. Hopefully, that answered all of your questions about using Google Slides. Of course, if I missed something or you have additional questions, please let me know and I will answer them for you. Or if I don't know the answer, I will try my best to find the answer for you. I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas, And I hope to make some more videos soon, especially about using web-based lessons. That's my next video. Hopefully, I can get to that one soon. Bye, everyone.